So today, as I'm moving projects around and getting a new one in the shop so I can make you animals a new video, I got thinking about something as I'm cleaning up. Oil pumps. The most important part in an engine, I would say, but yet the least talked about. What can you do to make sure your oil pump works correctly, lives longer, and makes your engine happier? Well, I'm going to show you.
I'd say it's a nut job.
All right, I have an old used oil pump here out of an engine that I disassembled, and I'm going to take it apart. We're going to clean it up, and I'm going to show you all the stuff about an oil pump using this old one right here, and things you can do to one in your own shop to make your engine happier and live longer. All right, so right off the bat, I'm going to go ahead and take it apart, take this plate off the back of it, and we're going to give it apart. We're going to get it in the sonic cleaner. We're going to clean everything, and then we're going to look at it. I don't know how many people have actually seen the inside of an oil pump before, but if you haven't, they're actually very simple. They're made very simple. They're not a complicated design, but they are important. And very easy to make better. There's just a few things you can do to make one even better. That's all they are to them. This is all they are to them. It's a little star gear, wheel, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how you can make this thing better and live longer. But we're going to drop it in the sonic cleaner first and clean all the parts up and look at what they are. It's about time for me to get some new solution for my sonic cleaner. But we're going to use what we got. Drop everything in, including the housing, which I think may have to take a couple of times just to get all covered. Cover it up and turn it on. All right, fresh out of the sonic cleaner. All our parts are cleaned up, nice and clean and shiny and look like new. Now, don't worry about me just throwing this on a chair and talking about it, because this oil pump is garbage anyway. I'm just going to go through this pump and show you how an oil pump works, what the parts of it do, and how you can improve it and make it better and make it have a longer life. And that's the whole point of this video, is to show you simple things you can do. This is the heart of your engine. This is what keeps your engine alive above all else. So you want to take care of this. Now let's go through this and look at the components, how they go together, and what you can do to improve this thing. First off, how it all goes together. Most of them have a dot on them. Drop it in there. This goes in here. This goes in here. And that's all there is to it. Then your drive shaft rod that comes from your distributor goes right in here and turns this. That's all it does. It makes a suction. The way these gears put together makes a suction. It sucks the oil from the oil pan, and into the next stop will be the filter. It's just a suction effect. So that's and then it's got this cover over it that seals it all up. So that's basically the simple version of it. Well, let's take a look at some deep dive things of what makes things work. Inside an oil pump, if I can get it in here, I'll zoom in a little bit. There is a rod right here. There's a spring behind that some washers, and when it makes a certain amount of pressure, that slides back. I don't know if you can see that on there. That will slide back. When that slides back, that's a bypass. It allows it to make so much pressure, and then based off of how they have it set, it's a bypass. So at a certain pressure, it bypasses the oil to return. That's what sets the pressure on an oil pump. Basically, high pressure oil pumps have a tighter spring or a little shim in there to tighten up the pressure of the spring so that there's more pressure on it. That's really all there is to it. And when it reaches a certain predetermined pressure, it allows it to bypass. It's it's a very simple mechanism, and it lends itself well to living. But what happens a lot of times is this one here is junk, and if you look at these gears on it, or whatever you want to refer to these as, if you look at them, they're absolutely chewed up everywhere. And there's some ways to prevent that, and there's some ways to make sure that your oil pump lives longer and performs even better. So let's get into those things. All right, so a couple of things you can do. Let's set this stuff aside for right now, and let's look at just the housing itself. If you've ever heard the term of blueprinting an oil pump, I'll show you what they're talking about there. There's several things that you can do on an oil pump. If you look down in here, there's a lot of rough and raw castings, especially right through here, where if you look inside here, there's a bunch of raw castings, especially through here, and even through here, you can see some raw casting marks around both of these lines, for lack of a better term. There's also a lot of raw castings around in here. You can almost see where that has rubbed and smoothed out some of the casting marks. You can see right here, it almost looks like there's a lip there, but it's really not a lip there. That's where that has rubbed on it and smoothed out the raw casting. That is not a lip. So one of the things that you can do, you hear people talk about blueprinting. Now, I use the same tools that I do for porting a head or an intake or anything. I have a die grinder with carbide bits and sanding wheels and all. Just like you hear the term downturn and things of that nature on a head, the same thing here. This is a hard turn right here. If you look at this, that hole is right here, and then it's got to make about a 45-degree turn right here inside here. So you go in here and you take a little off and radius this right here, and then you go in there with your little sanding disc or flapper wheel, and you clean all this up and make this all super smooth. I wouldn't worry about a mirror polish, but that's entirely up to you. But make all this smooth. I mean, I can almost hang, listen right here, you hear it. That curve is so sharp right there. There is a hard angle right there, and you can actually hang your screwdriver on that. So go in here and clean this up. Take this downturn right here and soften it. Clean all the slag and casting marks out of here. Do the same thing on this side. Go in here, there's like right there, there's raw casting marks all around this. Go in here and clean this up. Sand this down. Take all these casting marks out. Clean all this up. Smooth all this. Leave this right here alone. This is what your outer piece rides on. Leave this alone. Don't worry about this. Right down here is where you want to get. You want to clean all this up. I would clean this right here up. Clean this right through here up a little bit. Make sure this is nice. Don't make this hole bigger. You don't want to change your clearances between these, but you can go in here and clean all this up. Once you clean all this and get all the raw casting out of here, you can come through here with a piece of emery cloth and just hit this just to make sure it's smooth, but don't open this up. You want to leave that like it is. But your important thing is to clean all this out, get this downturn, clean all this raw casting out. Then on the same thing right through here, you can see if there's raw casting here. Hit this just a little bit, clean that up. On this side over here now, this side over here we do a little port work. This is such a hard turn right here. Go in here and just like you did on the other side, go in here and clean this up. There's no reason for that to be an edge right there. That should be a smooth transition. And go over here and clean this edge up so it's smooth. You here and open this up a little bit, clean all this, take all those casting marks out. You want all this to be smooth. And when you get all that smooth, the oil just flows better. So you can do all that. That will make this oil pump work better, and it'll make it live longer as well. Also, inspect these when you get them. Make sure there's no, this one's just chewed up. Make sure there's no rough castings on this. Make sure that this isn't chewed up. Make sure this is nice and polished. You want that. Same thing with this right here. Now, you can get in here. You can see there's some machine marks right in here. If you want to really get in here and get some emery cloth and clean these machine marks up, there's nothing wrong with that. Don't change this and don't really change this. If you want to get some emery cloth and polish it, that's perfectly fine, but don't change it. Leave it the way it is. But get in here and clean this up a little bit if you want to. So now you have all that done. Now there's some advanced stuff where you can go in here and pop this out and change the pressure on it. I would suggest probably not messing with that if you're just doing a stockish rebuild. This is more advanced for, you know, if you're trying to get into some real performance stuff from some racing applications and all. But I would not worry about that on most engines. Most engines, that right there will be fine. But you want to clean all these raw casting marks up. I also go through here and I'll clean a lot of these up. Now, you do not have to do that. That is not going to hurt a thing, but I go in here and I clean all this up as well so you can know it's been cleaned. Now, when it comes time to reassemble this, when it comes time to put it back together, now I'm going to go ahead and go through the process with you, even though this one is a junk part. I'm going to go through the process with you and show you how I do this. Keep in mind, guys, this is just a really quick thing for you to think about in the future. This is not necessarily a how-to. This is not necessarily one of those things that I'm just going in depth to show you. If it's something you want to see when we do the next engine build on here, I will sit down at the bench and go through step by step, show you what I do to do all this and how it looks when it's finished and cleaned up. I can do all that. But right now, I'm just more or less giving you an overview or an idea. So there is one thing that I always do when I put these back together, and I'll show you that and explain that. All right, so when it comes time to put these back together, I take a little assembly lube, get these pieces, I'll take a little assembly lube and put on here and just rub it around. You don't need, 15 pounds. You just need a little assembly lube. A little bit more. I didn't get all the way around it. Just make sure you get all the way around this thing. A little assembly lube on it. And then I also, since I know that's the top side, I also come over here to the bottom side and just touch it. I'll even take some off the side. Again, you don't need a ton of it. And assembly lube's already in your motor because you're building a fresh motor, so you're not hurting anything. Put that in there. Give her a couple little rounds just to make sure everything's smooth. Same thing with this. I'll come over here and hit it with a little assembly lube. You don't have to go absolutely crazy with it. You just need a little assembly lube on it. And then I'll take the assembly lube and again pull it off the sides and wrap it around down here and on the shaft, and then I'll slide that right in there just like that. Now that ensures that you're not going to have a dry start. Keep in mind, I know we all talk about priming the oiling system and all that because then you don't dry start your engine, and that's a great thing. But even when you're priming it and you got that tool down through there and you turn it, this oil pump starts dry. No matter what you do, this oil pump starts dry 100% of the time. So by putting a little assembly lube in here, and just smear it around, you're preventing this oil pump from starting dry, from dry starting. I will also take on the lid right here and just put a dab. That's way too much, by the way. Just put a dab of assembly lube. You can see how bad this pump was. It has eat the cover up on this thing. So again, this is a garbage part. But I will also rub a little on this, and then I will put my lid on. Once I get my lid on, get my bolts in. Again, you want to tighten these down, but we're only using this for demonstration purposes right here. All right, you got all that tightened down. So if I put that in there, that's the way it sits. It goes in there like that. And then you can feel this thing is just, of course it's got some resistance, it's tight, but this thing is smooth tight. Like I don't feel any rough edges or anything because of that assembly lube. So now when you prime your oiling system, now, you're not starting your pump dry. Because keep in mind, until it actually sucks oil up and starts putting oil to the end of the motor, this is dry. So the first few spins of this, there's nothing in there. So it's metal on metal. Unless you take the time to open this up. If you don't do anything else with this oil pump, if you don't do any of the blueprint or anything, open them up, take these two little wheels out, put assembly lube on them, put them back in there. Even if you're about to start the motor, and if you just use oil, I don't care, but put something on these, slide them back together, tighten these bolts up. That way, when you start this, it's not just metal on metal in here, just grinding until it gets oil in there and then it finally lubricates and smooths out. Because in that critical few moments, you can waste an oil pump by allowing it to chew on itself metal on metal. I've taken a bunch of these apart, some of them that ran good, but still when you take them apart, you can see that they're eat up in there. By doing this, you prevent that from happening, and you promote a long life for your oil pump. The oil pump will live a lot longer and be a lot happier. Now, more advanced stuff would be to pull this plug out right here. You can put a shim in there, change springs, and you can change these things from a normal pressure oil pump to a high pressure oil pump along those lines. But again, that's more advanced stuff that we don't need to talk about in this particular video. But raw castings is not your friend, and metal on metal is never your friend. So make sure that you always take these apart and lube the inside of these real well. That will make these things live a lot longer, and your engine will be a lot happier. That's a short piece of wisdom that I wanted to pass on. A lot of people don't think about these little things that make engines live longer. I like to put that out there. There's a video on my channel. If you go back and find it, it's titled something about what failed or something along those lines, what failed in this FE or something, where we took apart a 390 engine that had severe low oil pressure. A fresh built 390 that had severe low oil pressure. When we took it apart, we mic'd all the clearances. They were on. We looked at all the bearings. The bearings looked brand hammer new. Well, they were, but I'm talking not even, they didn't look like it had been ran. They looked like it just came out of the box. Couldn't find a single thing wrong with this engine, but it had low oil pressure. Way low oil pressure. Taking the oil pump apart was down the line a little bit, and I took the oil pump apart, It was absolutely trashed inside. The oil pump was garbage from the start. Again, try to use these easier to understand terms. The wheel inside with a little star that I showed you that come out of there. They were eat up. They looked like they had been through a rock grinder. They were eat up. And the part that I showed you where it was a bypass of the spring in there, I have no way that I can check to see what that tension was on that spring that I can think of. I'll probably come up with a way sooner or later. But the fact that I've taken and pushed back on 1,000,000 of those, I can tell you that that spring moved a lot easier than any other spring that I had pushed. So that oil pump was garbage. Right out of the box, brand new, it was garbage. So what I'm telling you is by doing this, you ensure that you touch each part, that everything's cleaned out in there. There's no metal in it, no gunk in it. It's smooth inside there. And you don't start it dry because you've put assembly lube in there. So now you've given that oil pump every chance to survive that it possibly can. Just one of those little tips that I wanted to pass on. Guys, stay tuned for some more videos. There'll be a video coming out probably the first of the week. We've got to get either the Galaxy back in here and finish up a couple things on it, or we've got to get the wagon in here and do a few things for it before Power Tour. So one of those two vehicles will be on the channel next week. Will either be the Galaxy or the wagon. So y'all hang in there. There's some more great content to come. I am going to take a break for a little while. I'm hot, sweaty, and tired, and it's warm today. So God bless y'all. Hope the Lord blesses you more today than he did yesterday. To him be all the glory. And we will see you guys on the next one. And if you don't mind, how about a little click on that subscribe, or drop me a comment, or a thumbs up, or even maybe share a video with friends. Love you guys.
I'd say it's a nut job.